right. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. We're super glad that you're able to join us to celebrate Nexus's 20 years of building bold leadership. We have an excellent program planned today. We're honored to have Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan join us, along with former State House Representative from Minnesota, Hodan Hassan, who's one of our alumni, and our other alumni, Victoria McWane-Creek, who's a founder of an organization called Organization for Full Participation, and she is another alumni. Before we begin, we want to get a sense of who's with us today. So we have a couple of polls, and our very first poll here is should show up in your Q&A section. Where are you from? Are you from the Twin Cities, Greater Minnesota, the suburbs, out of state, or other?
What do we got? Can we see the results, or should we move to the second one?
No, I don't see the results. We'll go to the second one too.
We'll go to the second one. Maybe we
Yep,
can. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there we go. Oh, so an overwhelming majority of folks are from the Twin Cities, and we have a handful from Greater Minnesota, and then the rest from the suburbs and out of state.
Nice. Very nice. Welcome, everyone.
Our next poll is where do you work? Are you from nonprofit and philanthropy, government, or the private sector, or other? So that should show up here momentarily on your Q&A as well.
See where all these folks are from. What do we got?
A lot of peers in nonprofit philanthropy, and a lot of folks from the private sector, and a good number of folks from other sectors. Thanks for joining our program today and answering the poll. Next, I'm going to introduce Nexus's president and CEO, Rapah Micah. Rapah serves as our founder and CEO. He has 35 years of experience in community-based leadership guidance, creative institution building, wealth building strategies, organizational leadership, and systems change work. He is recognized locally and nationally as an innovative visionary leader and heads of Nexus's work with regional and national partners.
Am I on, Chai?
Yes, you are, sir.
Thanks, Chai. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, we got to try that again. Now, I'll spend all my time just saying good morning until folks kick in, right? Good morning, everyone.
Come off mute and just
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. McCaw. Let's show Rapah some love, people.
Thank you. Thank you. May the ancestors guide my words, my thoughts, my deeds, and my direction. As was said, I'm Rapah Micah, and I serve as the founding president and CEO of Nexus Community Partners, and I'm extremely excited to see all of you here this morning. It's a pleasure and an honor to be in space and to share energy with you. And I'm especially excited about the fact that we are together as we launched Nexus 20th year anniversary and celebrated across the year. For 20 years, Nexus has built engaged and powerful communities of color so that all our residents can flourish in joyful, in joyful and abundant lives. We organize all of our work within and across 4 ships: authorship, leadership, ownership, and stewardship. And we established these ships early on with great intentionality, because from the beginning, we understood that who plans for, who governs, who owns, and who stewards resources has always been at the crux of sustained inequities in this country. We've known that from the beginning. And so we pushed to usher out old, rigid rules, attitudes, and practices that we knew concentrated wealth and power in fewer and whiter hands. And we've tried our best to usher in ways of living, working, and making decisions together that nurture communities for this generation and generations to come. 20 years ago, we did something simple yet powerful. We turned to community as a source of strength and to reimagine what power looks like when it is rooted in truth and relationships. And the ideas, the brilliance that was gifted to us by community has always informed our mission, our strategies, and our innovations. The reality is that every initiative that Nexus has employed has been the first of its kind in the region, and in some cases in the country. Even our name was given to us by a circle of elders, cultural elders, and we reached out and asked them to name us, as opposed to having the audacity to try to name ourselves in a way that was sustainable. And over those years, our highest sense of accountability has always been to community. As a result of that 20 years of being embedded in community, Nexus has deep roots. Many of you have experienced us over time. And we are poised to meet the moment, whatever it brings, but also to meet the future in whatever it offers us. And so today we launch a year-long celebration of our work, starting with the Boards and Commissions Leadership Institute. And I'll just say a few words. In 2014, at the launch of the first BCLI cohort, and I remember it well, it was at the Wellstone Center on the west side of St. Paul. And it was kind of the first introduction to BCLI. And the vision back then was of a large connected group of equity-minded leaders sitting at different decision-making tables that design policies that impact our lives. And that was more than an inspiration for us. That was our sense of possibility, what could happen. When we established BCLI, there was nothing like it in our region. We actually went out and asked folks, does it make sense to do this? And had we heard no, we wouldn't have done it. So this was a call from the community. And at that time, we were supporting organizers who were engaged in bringing community to influence some of the local transit way development that was happening. And those organizers wanted to move from being just consulted in the process to taking seats at decision-making tables in local government. And we were committed to making that happen. And the BCLI was the answer. And a lot has happened since then to make it a reality. 10+ years later, and 157 alumni strong, we have the foundation now of a growing movement of equity-minded leaders with a shared analysis and common tools. I'll repeat that, a shared analysis and common tools that are positioned or positioning themselves as we speak to influence critical decision-making tables. Consider the power of that, 157 people with shared analysis and common tools operating across this state. That's the power that we have in being with each other. So hold that as we're moving through the day, because it is part of the promise that we hold. And now I have the honor and the deep pleasure of introducing our guest speaker, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. And I'll read her bio, but I also want to just say a word that comes from me to her. Lieutenant Peggy Flanagan is Minnesota's 50th Lieutenant Governor, a member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe, and currently the country's highest ranking Native woman elected to executive office. Peggy served on the Minneapolis Board of Education from 2005 to 2009. She went on to work at Wellstone Action, the organization founded to carry on the work of the late Senator Paul Wellstone for nearly a decade. Following her work at Wellstone Action, Peggy served as the executive director of the Children's Defense Fund. This is where we met long time ago, a nonprofit child advocacy organization working to level the playing field of all children in our state. In 2015, Peggy was elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives to serve her home community of St. Louis Park, as well as Golden Valley, Plymouth, and Medicine Lake. Peggy lives in St. Louis Park with her husband, Tom, daughter, Sobian, and dog, Ruben. So I will say this, I think that we come to this work through different tracks. Three stand out to me. Early on, we are noticed and something in us is recognized and we are encouraged to pay attention to it. Opportunities are created for us to exercise it. It's groomed in us and we figure out ways to lean into it. The second is that early on, we get oriented towards education and market demands, and we track what's happening in the market. We get trained up and we position ourselves to meet that demand. And both of those are very important. But the other is that early on, we discover and recognize that there's something deep inside of us that comes from the inside as opposed to from the outside. And that it teaches us and trains us across time. And we come to understand it as a deep sense of knowing, a sense of purpose, something greater than ourselves. And over time, it becomes crystal clear that the work that we're engaged in is solely not about careers or occupations, but about purpose and calling. And the positions that we're placed in are platforms for us to live that purpose and calling out. That matters because it determines and shapes how we show up, right? So please join me in welcoming our Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan.
Well, thank you so much, Rapa. And I'm literally coming to you from the road on my way to Bemidji. So you're getting the realist version of Lieutenant Governor right now. But Buju, Peggy Flanagan, Indigenous Cause, Gijuwebada McCoy, Indigo, Guabaga, Ningani Cogna Junjaba, Dame. My American name is Peggy Flanagan. My Ojibwe name is Speaks in a Loud and Clear Voice Woman. I am a member of White Earth. My family's the Wolf Clan, and the role of our clan is to ensure that we are not leaving anyone behind and that we are the protectors of the community, which is why I feel a great kinship and alliance of Nexus Community Partners, and especially with the work that you're doing now. And just wanted to say, first of all, how exciting it is to be here and kicking off 20 years, 20th anniversary, and also to know that that 20 years of labor and growth and nurturing and cultivation, I hope you know that it has all been worth it, and we get to see this work and the leaders who have grown out of Nexus all the time. And I'm, Shai Lee being one of them, who has been a real friend and ally as well, and so grateful for this invitation. Many of the folks who have gone through this process have shared concerns and issues that have now been, transformed into existing policies within boards, commissions, state government. And I think like that is also in this moment, being able to see the good work and seeing your fingerprints on this work, I think is one of the most powerful things that just speaks to why this matters. It's not easy work. And it is not easy work walking into and sitting at the table and getting ready to be part of systems that were not often created by us or for us, but in many ways were created to eliminate us or to silence us. And so I want to just also acknowledge that and how powerful, this space for one, like training and teaching about these systems, but also I think most importantly, knowing that, letting folks know that like we're supposed to be at these tables, we are meant to be at these tables, we must be at these tables, and having support to do that, I think is incredibly powerful in this moment. We have, I think, done some really good work together over the last many years. And I want to name that much of that work has to do with deep relationship building and trust, and is more, and I think Rapah, this speaks to what you were talking about, is more about vocation than occupation. And that if we can figure out, and I think that's such a big part of BCLI, which is, what is your gift? What is your skill? What do you bring into this space? And how do you make sure that, you're doing the thing that you lose track of time doing, which oftentimes I think is your gift and your vocation that you can share with others. And that thing, at least for me, regardless of what my like job is in that moment, right? Rapah said, like, we met when I was the executive director of Children's Defense Fund, trying to move for policies like increasing the minimum wage, paid family and medical leave, investment in childcare, but also childcare workers who do this work. That is part of the vocation, right? And it's being in these seats, whether it's at CDF as an advocate, or if it's being in the legislature and working to move these policies, or if it's being, lieutenant governor, we're bringing everybody with us, right? We are bringing our community, we are bringing the people that we represent into those spaces. And that is why we have been able to be successful in moving many of these things forward. It's, we got the butts in the seats, but we also have done the work over time to build a coalition, to refine these policies that our community and our folks and the people who are directly impacted by these policies have a voice within their creation. So I just wanted to, to name that if you, are feeling down in this moment, as we are in a time, I think, of great uncertainty, and where for many of us, simply our existence is being challenged in this moment, I also want you to just feel hopeful, because as you take a step back and you look at all of the work that these 157 people have been able to do, the work of Nexus Community Partners, the vocational work that has happened, people are noticing, and that's one of the reasons why they're pushing back. We are powerful in this moment. We are powerful at these tables. We are powerful when we take up space and we speak to our own lived experience, which is so incredibly valid. And so as I travel across the state, you know, people are afraid in this moment, but they also, I think, are very clear that they are standing on a strong foundation of resiliency and, you know, the work that must continue to be done. And when folks, you know, sometimes will say like, how do you keep going? You know, I just say is like, as an Anishinaabe, as a Native woman, I don't know that I have a choice, right? Like this is, when I think about it, when my aunties say to me, my girl, we've been through so much already. You can do this, right? I want you to remember that, that too. And that when we have folks who are, you know, using DEI as somehow, you know, as a critique or, you know, as a slur or a bad word, like I encourage all of us to, you know, say the whole phrase: diversity, equity, inclusion. And if, you know, what I have seen, and clearly what you have seen through this work, is diversity, equity, and inclusion, having people with different perspectives and lived experience at these tables, part of these boards, serving in government, serving in, you know, philanthropy, and serving in the nonprofit sector, and in all of these spaces. That is something that helps us get good results for real people. And we have to push back and we have to name it. And I am so grateful for the work that you do, because this is a great place for us to be able to point back to say, this is getting good results for folks. And that is the work. So I wish that I wasn't in a moving vehicle, you know, and, you know, could spend some more time and hear good words from the additional speakers that you're going to have, who I hold and admire. But just know I am here with you celebrating 20 years of Nexus Community Partners. I am celebrating 10 years of BCLI. I am celebrating the next 10 years of the next 157 people who are going to serve on boards and commissions. And just want to say Chimigwech for all of the work that you have done, but also Chimigwech for all of the work that you will do and that we will do in partnership together, regardless of role or job or occupation, because our vocations are the same. Our vocations are the same and are, you know, linked together. And that I know that my vocation is to make sure that people are seen, heard, valued, protected, and believed. And that is how I am checking myself. And I hope that you are also clear on what your vocation is. And if you're not, spend some time thinking about it, because I know that it's there, and that is our superpower in this moment. And for many of us who have survived in some way, shape, or form by making ourselves small, now is not the time. It does not serve us as individuals. It certainly does not serve this movement or the work that is required of us in this moment. So take up space. Know that you have earned your seat at that table, whatever table that is. And the people who've loved you to existence have also helped you to earn that seat. You deserve to be there. And I remind myself of that every day. So Chimigwech, thank you so much for having me. And here's to another 20 years, and here's to another 10 years. Rapa and everyone on the team, Danielle and just everyone, thank you for what you have created and what you've built, and thank you for giving us hope.
And thank you for all your work as well. Nobody does it alone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan.
Thank
I
you.
also want to say thank you for your support. I know for folks who don't know, I'm on my second term on the Med Council. Thanks to the support of my supervisors and colleagues at Nexus, as well as to the office of the governor and the lieutenant governor. So the things I'm learning on the Med Council, I infuse throughout the curriculum to help teach the alumni and the fellows every day. So thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
And we are
Thank
so
you.
grateful for your good work there. Thank you for being part of the Met Council. I know it's not always glamorous work, but it is the work and making sure, right, that that folks have what they need and that our voices are at the table. So I appreciate your leadership as well and your willingness to step in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so if we can get the PowerPoint back up, I'll go through a brief overview of the program and share some bragging points and statistics. So the BCLI is a 7-month leadership program that works to build more engaged, powerful communities in our region by equipping BIPOC and other shut-out community members to serve on city, county, metro, and statewide boards and commissions. And actually, in fact, at this point, we have 2 alumni on national and international boards as well. So we have branched out beyond the state. I want to share this wonderful quote from one of our superstar alumni, Hodan Kim, who is an elected member of the St. Paul City Council, and she is the St. Paul City Council's vice president. I tell everyone that BCLI changed my life. It was a turning point training that helped me understand how to navigate power and place with people. This completely catalyzed my professional and personal trajectory. And then if we can go to the next slide. This is just a sampling of some of the placements of our alumni. As you can see, we have placements throughout the metro as well as the state. Just a sampling of the regional boards. Some folks have been appointed to the Met Council's Equity Advisory Committee, as well as the Transportation Advisory Board, also to the Met Council itself. Some statewide boards, the Minister Board, the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs, Governor's Workforce Development Board, similar boards at the county in Dakota County, the Workforce Development Board. We have one alumni, our very first appointed as a judge last year. We hope to get more folks with legal background to get onto the bench, as the bench in Minnesota is not very diverse at all. Some sampling of Ramsey County boards. Some of our alumni have been placed on the Charter Commission, the Public Health Community Health Services Advisory, at the statewide level, heading home, St. Louis County, as well as the African Heritage Commission and Community Action Partners in Duluth. If we can go to the next slide. Since we kicked off with Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, in the same vein of public service, folks who tend to get on boards and commissions tend to learn the skills and get the inspiration to seek higher office, elected office, or higher profile appointed offices. And so we're proud to brag that we have a couple of alumni who have gone on to public office. 1 member of Congress, 2 members of the Minnesota State House, 1 school board member, 2 city council members, 1 district court judge, and 1 on the Met Council. So with that, before I introduce our 2 alumni speakers, we're gonna do a couple more polls. The next poll is poll 3. How well do you know Nexus? The options are not at all. This is my very first event. Not very well. Very familiar with Nexus's work, former current program participant in Nexus programs or events, or I've known Nexus for a very long time. So if folks take a quick second to do the polls, and we'll see what kind of variety we have. All right, it sounds like a lot of folks know us pretty well, and only a few folks are not yet very familiar with our work.
That's
So
great.
it's pretty easy to sign up to get on our email list. If you just go to our website and hit the contact form, you'll automatically be added to our website, to our email list. Our next poll is, what is your experience with leadership positions in civic life? I have a lot of experience serving on boards and commissions. I have experience serving on nonprofit boards, or experience serving in private sector boards. I have experience in community leadership and activism. I have experience in other arenas of public policy making, or All of the above or none of the above?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
It looks like a good number of folks have experience, mostly from the nonprofit sector for boards,
Mhm.
and half of us have experience in community leadership. All right, that sounds wonderful. All right, so we'll go on to our alumni speakers. Thanks to the two alumni who volunteered to join us this morning. Our first alumni is Victoria McWane-Creek. Victoria is grounded in radical acceptance, empathy, and liberatory leadership. Her work focuses on aligning people, processes, and strategies to create high-impact, mission-driven solutions. Victoria is dedicated to equipping individuals, organizations, and communities with the tools they need to thrive in an ever-evolving world. Victoria McWane-Creek is the 2024 Minnesota Star Tribune Community Bridge Builder, 2021 Facing Race Award honoree, 2020 Minnesota Women's Press Changemaker, a graduate of the University of North Dakota with a master's in instructional design and human performance improvement, and founder of Organization for Full Participation. Organization for Full Participation values identity, intersectionality, inclusion, and intentionality, and supports companies and communities' organizational effectiveness efforts and performance improvement needs by developing strategic intentions that close knowledge, customers, the outcomes, performance, and skills gaps so that results do not vary across groups. So thanks to Victoria for joining us this morning.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Chai and Rapa and Christine and Teresa, just everybody for just being so lovely in allowing me to share a little bit about my story and how BCLI has really impacted the trajectory and the path that I've been on of late. I am truly honored to be here with you all today and to share about my life's work, which is really centered on fostering growth, building community, and transforming lives ultimately, whether it's building and strengthening community connections or advocating for fairness. I have been able to leverage my skills that I've earned and developed, as well as the passion that comes from experience, to close gaps in access, knowledge, opportunities, and outcomes. And so I had a song that I wanted to have played, and the technical difficulties and things doing what they do cannot play it right now, but I will share with you a little bit of the lyrics as I go through this. I just decided that I'm going to do it that way. And so if you've never seen The Wiz, it's a film that I turn to time and time again, and it's an allegory for life, period. And so one of the first verses is to pick your left foot up, and when your right foot's down, legs keep moving, don't lose no ground. You just keep on keeping on the road that you choose, and don't you give up walking because you gave up shoes. My grandma Lily, she used to say, a closed mouth don't get fed. And Uncle Joe Madison would say, put it where the goats can get it. And between the two of them, I have all learned how to say what needs to be said in ways that the folks I need to hear me can understand, so that I can get my needs met and make sure that those around me are also being fed. And so Today, what I'm planning to share is a little bit about how BCLI has helped me to do that even better. My journey has taken me through several roles, from chairing the Fergus Falls Human Rights Commission, serving on the board of Mahaviatwa Community Action, supporting youth economic development with rural Minnesota SEP, and even completing 3 terms as an AmeriCorps Vista. And so for me, it has always been about elevating the voices of those who have been ignored, who have been purposely marginalized and turned away from the systems that were, of course, never meant to serve us. And in fact, beyond engaging directly with systems that don't serve us well, I've also decided to shift some of my attention and create the world that I want to see where I live, particularly with Black folks in rural Minnesota, creating opportunities for us to connect, find support, build strong relationships that allow us to alleviate the sense of isolation that is running deep for a lot of us. And through all of this, I've learned some vital lessons about the power of advocacy, the strength of lived experience, and the importance of challenging perceptions to create shared understanding that will allow us to then create a shared reality that works for all of us. I think about Fannie Lou Hamer, who says, until we're all free, we're not all free, basically, right? So we have work to do. And those lessons guide me every day as I continue to work and help my and other communities thrive. And so to continue thinking about the whiz and ease on down the road, there's another verse in there that says, because there may be times when you think you've lost your mind and the steps you're taking leave you 3-4 steps behind. But the road you're walking might be long sometimes. You just keep on stepping and you'll be just fine. And so that has been my method, is to pick a foot up, put it down, and believe and trust that it is where it's meant to be. That will allow me to lean into my strengths, learn what I need to know, and get what I need in order to do what I'm doing better. And so when I applied to join BCLI for the 23-24 cohort, I had big hopes rooted in reality and reaching for change. As a Black woman living in rural Minnesota, I have witnessed the limits of advocacy alone. I knew I needed to be in the rooms where decisions happen. Those decisions that profoundly affect and often cause harm to people often left out of the conversation. I wanted not to just be part of the conversation, but have the tools to shape those conversations with purpose and wisdom. My dream was to address the deep disparities in economics and health that have long impacted Black folks in rural Ottertail County and beyond. Being part of BCLI gave me the opportunity to connect with peers, to access resources and processes, and engage with systems in ways that has allowed me to move toward a vision for strategic and lasting change. Looking back on my time in the cohort, I'm profoundly grateful for the space it created within me, the growth it nurtured, and the focus it inspired. Through it, I gained tools and frameworks that have expanded my approach to leadership and civic engagement. I've learned to broaden my perspective and tackle challenges with thoughtfulness and determination. And most importantly, I met some incredible individuals and made some fantastic connections with folks who share a commitment to building a better world. We are all world builders. And if we can share what it is that we're working on and the impacts that we're trying to have and connect with other people, it allows us to see that the world that we're trying to create is actually possible. The BCLI experience has been transformative. I mean, it seems like it was just yesterday because it kind of was, but it boosted my confidence, not just as a professional, but also as a leader. It reaffirmed that my lived experiences combined with my earned expertise are invaluable assets in community building, even though it gets hard sometimes, which leads me to that third and final verse in Ease on Down the Road. Oh, there may be times when you wish you weren't born and you wake one morning just to find that your courage is gone. But you know that feeling only lasts a little while. You just stick with us and we'll show you how to smile. I've learned to appreciate and approach challenges with boldness and clarity, drawing on the strategies and insights that I've gained during the program to drive towards meaningful outcomes. Whether it's founding Onyx Collective, serving on the Otter Tail County Extension Committee, or running for Otter Tail County Commissioner, the impact of BCLI is clear in every step I take towards systems change. So if you're thinking about applying and joining BCLI's future cohorts, my advice is this program isn't a training. It's a journey. It's a chance to turn your aspirations into action, grounded in equity, empathy, and empowerment for self and others. It's about showing up in love, willing to turn over tables and talk it out at the same time. The tools you gain aren't theoretical, they're practical, real-world guides to navigating civic life together. If your heart is in advocacy, community service, and leadership, I'd say take the leap because it's worth it. As I reflect on this moment in time where things seem chaotic and very uncertain for many, many of us, I just want to encourage us to remember that we get to build our world. I'm reminded that community isn't static, it's always changing, with people coming in and going out, and needs are ever evolving within them. And so today we're being called to rise and meet the needs of our diverse communities in a very difficult time. And for some of us, that means really taking a step back and assessing, where am I going to invest my energy? That precious, precious resource that we only have so much of. Am I going to complain, or am I going to activate my vocation, my strengths, my expertise, my experience, and leverage that to build community that works for each and every one of us? For me, it's the latter, you know. It means fostering collaboration and connection through Onyx Collective. It means ensuring equitable decision-making as vice chair of the Otter Tail County Extension Committee, and continuing to amplify the voices that are often ignored through Organization for Full Participation. Change is inevitable. It is uncomfortable. And when we align people, processes, and strategies, such as those that I gained at BCLI, we can create solutions that are fair and serve everyone. My time with BCLI has reinforced this belief, and I remain committed to building, transforming, and thriving together. And I will leave you with this. Another thing Grandma Lily used to say to me is if you can't beat them, brick them. And for a long time, I thought that meant fight it out, right? Do what you got to do to win, you know, get in, get out, and move on. And what I have learned through time, perhaps what has solidified through time, is that sometimes the fighting it out is about me managing myself and making sure that where I am placing myself is where I'm supposed to actually be. And so I'm fighting with myself. And then there are other times when it is actually figuring out how to use my energy in a way that will allow people to see exactly how important this is. And that means using my words, choosing my words, being careful with my words, and not thoughtless or careless. Because at the end of the day, the community I want to build, the community and the world that I want to live in, is one where we all do thrive. And that means even those who don't think like I think, who have different set of beliefs and values than I do, I still want them to thrive too. So figuring out what Brickham means has been a lifelong process. And I am learning that Brickham can mean to work closely with people who you would not traditionally align yourself with, but who you can absolutely do work with when we have a shared reality, when we have some co-created some meaning together, and we have the tools and strategies that allow us to get where we want to go. BCLI has allowed me to pull some of that in and do some shifting in how I show up, which has been really powerful for me. So with that, I will just say thank you and give it back to Chai.
Come on, Dorothy. Don't you care?
Thank you.
That
I think Karen's trying to play your song. You can hear it a little bit.
down the road.
Thanks, Karen. We were having technical issues. We were trying to play music through Apple Music and it didn't work. So otherwise we would have played the song earlier for you, Victoria. So we are taking Q&A. Folks can put them in the chat and we'll pull them out in a little bit. Our next speaker is our alum, Hodan Hassan. Hodan Hassan is a Black Muslim immigrant woman who is dedicated and passionate about community organizing and has spent over 10 years advocating for social and economic justice as well as human rights before she became an elected official. Hodan was chairwoman of the Somali American Task Force and has worked for Project for Pride Living as a social worker. Prior to joining PPL, Hodan had worked at Hennepin County for many years. In that role, Hodan provided leadership and client advocate, public health, education, and was a service planner. Prior to joining Hennepin County, Hodan spent many years serving marginalized communities of Minnesota, providing advocacy and training, especially trainings related to gender-based violence and cultural competence. In 2018, Hodan was elected to the Minnesota State House to represent Senate District 62B, and she just retired from the legislature this past January. She was one of the founding members of the United Black Legislative Caucus. Some of the committees that she were on as a legislator were the Economic Development, Finance and Policy, where she was the committee chair, the Housing, Finance and Policy Committee, the Workforce Development and Finance Policy Committee, and the Ways and Means Committee. So thanks for joining us this morning, Hodan. Go ahead and you have the floor.
I first have to learn how to unmute myself. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Victoria, for sharing us that inspiring conversation. And I also want to thank our Lieutenant Governor for joining us. Thank you to the leadership of Nexus Community Partners for bringing us together. It's truly an honor to speak with you today as we celebrate 20 years of Nexus Community Partners and the remarkable impact of the Boards and Commissions Leadership Institute, BCLI. My name is Hodan Hassan, and I am a proud BCLI graduate. Since completing the program, I have served 3 terms in the Minnesota House of Representatives, where I held the leadership roles as Assistant Majority Leader, Vice Chair of Education, and a Chair of Economic Development. These roles allowed me to champion policies that reflected the values and needs of our communities across the state. My ability to lead with intention and purpose is rooted in my unwavering dedication to serving my community, is strengthened by the confidence and experience I gained through BCLI. When I first joined BCLI in 2016, 2017, which feels like a lifetime ago, we navigated a deeply uncertain and divisive times because of who we had in the White House serving as a president. And our communities, particularly Black, Indigenous, and people of color, felt increasingly under attack. Many of us were searching for belonging, strength, and the tools to fight back. BCLI became that space. It provided me more than knowledge. It gave me and others community, power, and purpose. It reminded us that we were not alone, and together we could push back against the forces seeking us to silence us. And here we are again today. The landscape feels all too familiar. Once again, we're witnessing the rise of fascism, division, and hate. threats that seek us to undo decades of hard-fought progress. This is why the work of BCLI is more vital today than ever before. We need our collective power to confront these forces and build future rooted in justice, dignity, and shared power. When I first applied to BCLI, I was already deeply engaged in community work, witnessing firsthand the systemic inequities that marginalized communities face every day. But I knew passion alone wasn't enough. To be part of the solution, I needed the skills, tools, and networks to influence systems of power. BCLI offered me exactly that, a platform not only to network with others, but to also understand the structures of shaping lives and challenging our systems and transforming them. Throughout the program, I was surrounded by a cohort of brilliant, passionate, and fearless leaders, people from diverse backgrounds, united by a shared commitment to equity. Together, we learned about economic development, health, inequities, housing, crisis, transit, workforce policies, not through the abstract theory, but through the lenses of lived experience and actionable change. BCLI created that space for us to apply our learning in real time, equipping us with the tools to advocate effectively, hold institutions accountable, and drive a meaningful change. One of the most profound impacts of BCLI on my journey was the unshakable confidence it gave me as a Black Muslim immigrant woman stepping into spaces of power often felt is intimidating. But BCLI empowered me to own my own voice, to recognize that experiences like mine and my community's struggle and my vision for justice was not only valid, but necessary at decision-making tables. That confidence propelled me to run for public office and win. Serving in the Minnesota House of Representatives was an extraordinary honor for me. The skills I gained through BCLI, the policy experts, strategic advocacy, and deep commitment to community accountability became the foundation of my work. Whether fighting for equitable healthcare, education, economic development, housing, or amplifying the voices of my constituencies, I carried the lessons and values I learned from BCLI with me every step of the way. To those of you who are considering to join BCLI or seeking to deepen your leadership journey, I offer you this. BCLI is not just a leadership program, it's a movement. It's a space that will challenge and empower you. It will connect you with a network of change makers who will stand beside you long after graduation. And most importantly, it will give you the tools to dismantle unjust systems and the courage to build new ones that center equity, dignity, and liberation. As we celebrate this milestone today, let's all be reminded that the work is far from over. The fight for representation, justice, and shared power continues. But the good news is that we are not alone. We have each other, and together we have the collective power to shape a more just, inclusive, and thriving Minnesota and America. And in conclusion, I leave you with this beautiful quote that I found today. Leadership is not about titles or power. It's about courage, conviction, and the willingness to stand in the gap for those voices that have been silenced. True leadership is measured by the impact we make and the legacy of justice we leave behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hodan. We'll go on to questions and answers, and if folks have questions, they can put it into the Q&A function in the bottom right of your screen. I'm going to pull out the first question, and then Christine will pull out the second question. I'll put it in the chat as well, just so folks can see. The first question here for both of you is, here's to being world builders and creating what's possible, not only making what is better. Would be curious, any advice you have for world builders and those of us in roles to support to continue to build equitable civic life in the world we all need and deserve. Any one of you want to start?
That is, you know what? Yeah, I have the answer to that question. We solved this problem yesterday at 5 o'clock, and we can all just go home now. No, I don't have really an answer for that question that is succinct. But what I do know is that the better we know ourselves, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, she said it, we do need to know who we are and what we stand for, what we value, what we prioritize. And we need to be able to clearly communicate that out loud with all 10 toes on the ground, solidly, firmly standing on our beliefs that everybody deserves freedom, everybody deserves access, everybody deserves to be able to live the life that they determine is the best one for them. And so I always start with knowing myself and what is my reason, what is my value, what is centering my response in any specific or non-specific situation, because that is what is going to guide any and everything that I do. Am I able to stand on, lean into who I am in order to get things done? Because it's really ultimately all I have, unless I have the relationships that will then allow me to expand the possibility of achieving that goal. So start with yourself, know yourself, and then expand that to others is how I've been able to do this work.
So first, I always tell people, please take care of yourself, because so many of us are engaged in this work where we're, worry so much about changing the world and making a difference and taking care of everybody that we forget to take care of ourselves. So self-care is a must, because this is a heavy work, this is hard work, and this is also emotional labor. So take care of yourself, and then always root yourself in the why. Why are you doing this work? If you always remember your why and you center all the work that you're doing around your why, I think the work gets more joyous and more beautiful. So center yourself with your why and take care of yourself.
Thank you both. Our next question is, what do you think prevents more people from taking leadership positions, and what would you say to them?
Sorry, what was the question?
What do you think prevents more people from taking leadership positions, and what would you say to them?
I think we are, it's the forces of power, right? We are taught that specific people belong in circles of power. Specific people are supposed to run the show. A specific group of people are supposed to do this. So if you're constantly told this is the group you belong, even though it's not true, you're going to believe that. So I think that what prevents people from joining this is it's who's in this leadership circles, who has access to this, who can you network with, and then also who is influencing you, who are you surrounded by, who's telling you where you belong in society. Because whether we like it or not, the forces that are around us shape us. They have influence on how our life turns out. If somebody tells me that your name is not Hodan Hassan for decades, I'm going to question myself and ask, maybe my name is not Hodan Hassan. So I think the forces around us that continuously telling us where we belong is the reason why many people question and second guess, and especially for women, because women are continuously told that politics and leadership is men's world. It's how the world is. I remember when I first ran, I ran against two men. And in my community, continuously people would tell me, why don't you let the boys do their job and just take care of your children? That was, if they were not doing anything wrong in their world, that was expected. But I was annoyed, and that actually pushed me to work harder than everybody else and to say, you know what? Not only do I belong in that space, I'm going to show you that I can thrive in this space. So it's, breaking the ceiling glass, challenging the systems and the forces of power that surround us. whatever space that you envision yourself to be in, that's where you belong. Do not listen to anybody else to tell you otherwise.
Thank you. There was a question in the chat, in the Q&A about what was your experience running for office? It was directed at Hodan, but I didn't know that Victoria had also run for county commissioner. So if both of you could also speak to that, your experience running for public office.
Yeah. So in 2020, I ran for city council in Fergus Falls, and in 2024, I ran for county commissioner in Otter Tail County. And my experience is that particularly in rural communities, it is a challenge to do some of the things that have traditionally been done to run a successful campaign. I live in a community that's about 15,000 people. In 2020, there was no expectation that there would be door knocking because, you know, it's COVID times. 2024, there was this very much expectation. And I, knowing where I was living and with all of the angst and anxiety that was present in our community and that was being fed by media from all over the place, door knocking was not something that I was willing to do. I knew I could turn into a driveway or a walk up somebody's sidewalk and could literally be met with a gun. I was not door knocking. And so that put me at a significant disadvantage in my community because I couldn't get in front of the people that I needed to and have the conversations. Now that was my decision to make, and it also made me look at myself a little deeper. Like, why am I putting so much distance between myself and the people that I actually want to connect with? Because I was putting that there, but the fear that I might be harmed was also real. And so having that conversation with myself was something that I had to do. I don't know if going back, I would make any different changes to my decision because some of the experiences that I did have running were very dangerous, and the potential for harm was high. So I don't know that I would make a different decision, but I do know that I have this awareness now that I didn't have before about the fact that harm can be caused and that it's not a level playing field depending on where you are if you're going to be able to get in front of voters to say and let them know who you are, because they can't vote for you if they don't know who you are. So that's my experience.
Is my mic better? People are saying that I'm static. My phone was sitting next to my computer, sorry. So my experience running for an office, I share with you, Victoria, the experience of feeling afraid. Even though I was running in, I was running from an urban core district that is very progressive. There was still the notion of like a Black woman with a hijab knocking on your door. So what I did was like, I used to take my campaign manager with me and I'll say, you knock the door. He's a white guy, so people will feel comfortable opening the door for him. And I'll stand to the side and wait until he makes introductions and introduce myself. So that fear is real. It's out there, whether you're running from an urban core, suburban or rural area. Running for an office was really hard for me. I did not belong in any circles of power. I did not come with a name people recognize. I had a name that people had hard time even pronouncing. I had to say my name a couple times for people to actually get what my name is. And I ran in a primary in a district that was very diverse and very progressive. There were 7 of us. So I had to work 3 times more than everybody else to win the seat. And after I won, I thought, oh, wonderful, the work is over. But the real work was stepping my feet into the Minnesota House of Representatives, where I first said, to my speaker, this is the most racist, sexist space I have ever stepped into. And I've worked in government. I've worked in the county. I've worked in the state. I've worked in a city. I've worked, in nonprofit and for-profit spaces. But I walked into space where people were openly racist, openly misogynist and sexist. And because they have an election certificate, they think that the rules don't apply to them. And my job was to continuously challenge that, to continuously challenge and say that, you know what, we're not in times where there were less women here, there were less people of color here, there were less indigenous people here. Look around you. The room doesn't look like what it used to look like. So you have to adjust your attitude and carefully choose your words when you're addressing communities of color and indigenous communities, Black and brown communities across the state, LGBTQ communities, the disability community. All of those were people who didn't have voices. When I first got elected in 2018, it was called the Year of the Women. There was 75 women that was elected. It was wonderful to have that many women in this space, but it also meant that each one of us had a battle ahead of her. Each one of us had to fight sexism and misogynist. And for me, it was also racism and Islamophobia and anti-immigrant sentiment. So, running for an office it's a wonderful experience and it's a rewarding experience, but it's also challenging, and you have to get yourself ready for a real fight before you can get to a space where you can make a difference and use your voice to challenge systems that create inequities.
Our next question is, what's next in your leadership journey?
I think leadership is something that is all the day, all the time, because if you're not managing and leading yourself, you certainly can't do anything for anybody else, right? So coming from that space of a full cup about being, and then pouring the excess or letting the excess flow into other people's cups is where I am at with all things, including leadership, whether it is public or professional or any other place. Right now, I am pouring into Onyx Collective, which is a straight up derivative of the Minnesota Black the Minnesota Black Foundation, and which I believe is a derivative of Nexus. Right. So right now I am pouring all of my excess into that, which is creating space for Black folks who live in rural communities in Minnesota to step away, engage in rest, relaxation, play, and relationship building, just so that we can be, as Hodan had just shared, doing the work that we do in whatever capacity that might show up, it has this additional burden. I can't just show up and do the work. I have to show up and help other people recognize that you can't talk to me like that. You can't, that's not going to work here. So figuring out how to fill my cup back up has meant that I have to take time away, manage all of the things within me, and have really strong relationships that pour into me as well, so that I can then go in and be in community and do the extra work before I get to the work that I'm trying to get done. So I'm always leading, but it's not always from the front. You may not always see or hear that Victoria is doing some stuff, but my words are out there coming out of other people's mouths, and I love it every time I hear that. And I don't need any attribution, because ultimately it is about getting stuff done. However we get it done, whoever is doing the work and lifting, let's do it. We're all leaders in this. We are always doing this work, but it starts mostly I'm leading myself, making sure that I'm walking in my aligned purpose and not wavering as I pick a foot up and put it down where it's supposed to be, because that's the only place that I can do work, is where I'm at.
Well, I mean, like Victoria said, leadership is evolving. And right now I'm done with serving. And I had personal reasons why I had to step down. I had to take care of my family. My father used to be a community person, and he spent all his life fighting the same battles that I am fighting. But he was always gone. He was always traveling. And to everybody, he was a hero. But to me and my siblings, he was an absentee father. So I realized I was doing that to my children. So I had to break the cycle and say, you know what? There's a way to do this work where I can still be a hero to my kids and continue to show up for things that are important to me. So that's one of the reasons why I stepped down from my my elected space, but I'm doing lobbying. So Fatima Moore, who is another Black woman, and I started a lobbying firm called Firefly. It's the first Black woman-led lobbying firm in the state of Minnesota. I'm not done with policy. I'm not done with challenging this inequities in our system. So I will continue to show up at the Capitol. I'll continue to show up in spaces that I need to show up to, continue changing policies that were not meant for us, but impact us every day. These policies were created at a time where, some of us weren't considered to be part of society. Women were considered to be part of society. Black and Native folks were not considered to be part of society. It was predominantly white men with land titles who had the power and who built the systems. So in order to continue fighting the systems, you have to envision yourself a better system, transforming them, challenging them, changing them, whatever it is. So I'm not done with that, but I'll tell you this, I'm not in office, but I still get phone calls at midnight, people telling me, I'm getting evicted, what can I do? So the work continues. I guess my community is not done with me, so I'll continue showing up in spaces that I need to show up, but I will also continue, showing up for my children and being a hero for my children first.
Thank you. There were a couple of questions that had the same theme, and so I'm gonna ask one that kind of consolidates a couple of them. The question is, in these times of uncertainty and in such an anti-democratic climate, how are you coping as BCLI alum? How do you stay grounded and find new strategies?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question, Chai. I don't know why, something
No,
wrong with my mic.
Yep,
maybe.
I'll repeat. In these times of uncertainty and in such an anti-democratic climate, how are you coping as BCLI alumni? How do you stay grounded and find new strategies?
Well, the best way to stay grounded is connect with people who have aligned vision with you. Connect with community support. Reach within. This work we can't do alone. We have to show up for one another. I remember, when in 2016, when we were in the space that we were in, many things came out of that. So there was a silver lining. The silver lining was that there were a lot of movements that were created to challenge the systems that were trying to divide us, the systems that were trying to take us back to 1960s. So I think that the way to stay grounded is connect with your community, connect with people who have similar visions as you. Continue to build this movement because this work is not over. Continue to ground yourself with why this work is important. Why do we need this work? Why we must continue. So many people have given up their life to give us the freedoms that we have today. So many people have fought and put themselves in harm's way to grant us the freedoms that we have today. And we always have to remember that this isn't over. This is it's continuum. In psychology, there's the term PTSD, but I say it's not PTSD because we're not done with the trauma. It's continuous trauma because it's not over. So just, I'm gonna go back to self-care because I'm a social worker by training and a mental health clinician. Don't forget to take care of yourself in this, times when times are tough and when things are hard. And don't trigger yourself by watching the news all the time and just getting upset. Instead of watching the news, do a Zoom call with people who have similar visions and strategize with them. Just surround yourself with the right people and continue the work. And, tomorrow is a different day.
Yeah, to every single thing that Hodan just said. And I'm gonna read a little something I wrote the other day that has helped me manage it. I was feeling some sort of ancient anger. It wasn't my own anger, but somebody said something about a rising tide lifts all boats. And I was like, what? What if I don't have any, what if there's no water on my land? How's my boat gonna get lifted? So anyway, a rising tide lifts all, but what if there's no water on my piece of land because the only land you let me in was landlocked? But hey, you already knew that, didn't you? I mean, it was you who built the dam, right? So for me, it is about recognizing that none of this is that it's going on in our current chaotic place of time and space is new. It has always been. And so figuring out what in this is something that I can turn towards is where I'm at with all the work. And so what I am actively doing is unlearning, unpracticing, unvalidating, and unconditioning my attachment to scarcity and lack, which is what has been infused into every bit of life that the systems around us would like us to live in, right? They want us to be struggling and to feel that sense of uncertainty and powerlessness, because that then keeps us focused on how we're feeling instead of what we're doing. And I'm here to get some stuff done. So I'm trying to, I step away, just came back from a trip to South Carolina. I have never been there. Went to a place called Botany Bay that I never heard of, but what they forgot to tell me and my friend Nancy when we went was that Botany Bay was a plantation on this island. We were going to see the dolphins play, frolic, eat, and hunt, all that good stuff. And they said, go to Botany Bay and you'll see them. So we went, not knowing that we were going to be bombarded by all of the ancient energy of violent, aggressive, torturousness that occurred on this island, where people who owned people were outnumbered at least 8-1. So you know how violent it was to sustain that life. So for me, it is really being in touch with all the things that I'm feeling at all the times and still getting things done, touching dirt, hugging trees, being with my people, whoever that might be in the minute, and staying focused on what is my task that I'm supposed to be doing, not the distractions that are innumerable, but what am I supposed to be doing in this moment to get closer to the world I want to build? That is it. How can I stay focused and not be distracted? There's some unlearning that has to happen. There is some unconditioning that has to happen for me to do this work effectively. And I find myself confronted with the fact that I need to always unlearn, unpractice, uncondition myself when I have those visceral, immediate responses, that there's some sense of lack when I know there's enough.
Thank you. Christine's gonna ask one more question and then we'll wrap up.
Okay. Yeah. So for those of us who have less interest in leadership slash holding a title, how can we support leaders?
Show up. I think one of the most important things about being in this spaces, especially for PIPAC folks, is that you're walking into space that not many people who look like you are in. You're walking into space that you do not have a whole lot of support. So if you're not interested in titles and holding a title, or by the way, leadership is not only by a title. There's so many ways to be a leader in your own space. But one of the things that I think that if I had to do this work ever again all over, was have more people from PIPAC communities, from disability communities, from LGBTQ communities show up in these spaces. Because when you are a lone wolf just shouting from the roof, people think you're crazy. But if you have, an army of folks shouting the same message, the message gets somewhere. So I think the best thing you can do for leaders and people who are in this space is show up, support, and support is not only monetary. Sometimes folks need just moral support. There are days that you're so demoralized that you want to quit. And, a phone call from somebody who you have respect for, who has, similar vision makes the difference. So I think showing up and supporting in person, in Zoom, donating to their causes and campaigns, showing up to door knock, showing up to just, sometimes we're doing hearings that are specific. When I was in the House, specifically that are changing systems or policies that are inequitable, and we will get maybe one or two people to show up, because and I know a lot of times people have jobs and they have to feed their family and take care of things in their own lives. But it makes a difference to show up for these people and say that, hey, I'm here for you.
Again, yes to everything Hodan has said. And I go back to being able to lean into what you value most, what your priorities are, and then support those who are leading in those areas to make sure that they have what they need in order to have a full cup that then can run over into others who are actively engaged in world building. It requires us to step back and look at all of the areas in which we are investing our time, our energy, our finite financial resources, and determining how might I do that differently so that I can make sure that those who are out there risking life and limb to move systems that do not want to be moved, which is making me think of Encanto and the one strong sister who, she can't break. No, we break. People break. Our hearts break. Our ability to see past the moment breaks. And so being able to lean into being able to lean on someone who, maybe has more energetic resources, who can help carry the load. You don't have to be a leader in the front. I think I said that earlier. You won't always see my name, but you might hear some words that sound like Victoria, or see, the results of something that I've done or been part of, or because somebody else helped do it, or it was something that they were doing and I was able to support in some way, shape, or form, whether that was listening as they made it make sense to themselves so that they could then, oh, that's what I meant to do. That's what I want to do. I mean, we have to be able to talk these things out. Our brains need it, right? We have to hear it in order to be able to make it real. So who are you listening to? If the only place that you're listening is an inanimate object like a TV that cannot actually respond or have a need for you, then I would say find a person who is doing some really great work, or that work that you admire or you want to know more about, and listen to them, because that's a huge, huge gift.
Thanks, Victoria. Hold on, there was a request at the end of your original presentation. You had a quote about leadership. Can you state that, if you remember?
Or pop it into the chat for somebody.
Was that for me?
No, that's for Hodan. Oh, hold on,
Okay.
you're muted.
Hi, you would think after 5 years we learn how to unmute ourselves. And I can copy and paste this on the chat too. Leadership is not about titles or power. It's about courage, conviction, and the willingness to stand in the gap for those whose voices have been silenced. True leadership is measured by the impact we make and the legacy of justice we leave behind. I'll also post it on the chat.
Thank you. I think a common thread amongst all the three speakers today is reminding us to lean into our power and to not be afraid to take up space, and to remember that we have powerful voices that we should exercise. And so thanks to the two wonderful alumni and to Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Before I hand over to Rapav to close us out with some reflections, I want to acknowledge once again my program director, Emeritus Terry Tao. She's too shy to speak, but I still want to acknowledge her. We wouldn't be here today without Terry Tao. Terry and I ran the first 7 cohorts together, and later next month, Christine and I will be launching the 11th cohort. And so thanks to Terry for her leadership and her vision. And we wouldn't be here without Terry. So go ahead, Rapa.
Thanks, Chad. I want to pause just for a moment to just comment on Hodan and Victoria, just to lift up honoring the value and spirit that you bring to this work, the time that you put into it, commitment to change, it being rooted in community and driven by equity. That wisdom and genius is not only important for the moment that we're in, but it's critical to the future that we're trying to create together. I would say similar to a theme that I said, and if folks have heard me say this, that the closer we get to the world that we want to see and experience, the steeper the slope of injustice becomes, that the work is not done. Even back when BCLI got started, we had to reach out and grab quotes, ancient quotes, in order to wrap them around ourselves as part of how we endured the moment that we were in. In 2014, it was sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. In 2015, it was many people in many small places undertaking many modest actions can transform the world. In 2016, it was strengthening equity, champions for change. All those were ways that we wrapped larger ideas and values and visions around ourselves in order to keep us grounded and focused in the work that we were doing. Messaging that came out of that is messaging that's consistent with the conversation that we've had today. The reality is that we are stronger together than apart, that we all have something to contribute, a part to play, no matter how large or small, that this work is about movement building, and it has to have as many faces, facets, and angles as possible. It takes all of us. And that the equity work that we do in small places is connected to a cause much larger than the spaces that we operate in, much larger than our individual contributions. And yes, as we do the work of champions, we do need the tools and the knowledge and the skills and the wisdom for change, but we also must take care of ourselves. We also must take care of ourselves, that our maximum performance calls for maximum care. Anything less is what you give. I would say to you at this point that our communities, our neighborhoods, our state, and for that, as a matter of fact, this country needs what you bring to this work of advancing equity now as much as there's ever been. And I would, as a point of encouragement, I would say to you that most of the most inspiring and landscape shifting change that we've seen for decades and decades has grown out of chaos. That we found strength and possibility, and we rose every time. And guess what? We will rise again. So there is no going back. There is no letting go. There is no stumbling. That we can see the future that we want to create, and as a result, we're responsible for leaning into it. I say to you that I have a strong, strong sense of confidence in that future because I know that folks that are on this Zoom are part of creating it, and that you are the gifts. That you are the gifts. That what we will receive into the future is what you help to offer in for us. And so I want to thank you all for being with us today as we kick off again 20 years, celebrating 20 years of Nexus work. We'll be celebrating across the year. We know that the honoring has to be more than an event and a moment in time. And so we stretch it so that as many people can lean into it as possible over the course of the year. And just be with us, join us in sustaining the work as we lean in. I'll give it back to you, Chai.
Thank you, Rapal. And thanks again, everyone, for coming and joining us this morning. We will send follow-up notes and a synthesis within the next couple of days. Behind the scenes here, our event today was possible by the consulting firm Three Sisters. I am putting them in the chat. One of the proprietors is actually one of our BCLI alum. And so we are super proud to work with them, to have them support us. If you need help with future events, whether that's in person or virtual, please consider hiring Three Sisters. And feel free to get onto our Nexus email list by signing up online. We have future events coming up. This is just the first of many events that will highlight different programs as we celebrate 20 years of Nexus. So we have 2 upcoming events, one on June 5th and one on November 12th. So with that, thanks for joining us, and we hope that you have a wonderful day and weekend, and I will give you back 20 minutes of your time. Thanks, everyone.